they're going to change the world.
You,
The
you,
world is watching. They're going to change the world. These birds are going to change the world.
For the better.
Yeah.
they have.
They have this trauma and this pain. There's no coming back from this, so there's no coming back. There's no coming back from this, but they're going to change the world. They're going to change the world. These empty pens, they're going to change the world. I have full faith in that. We have faith in that. They're going to change the world. They're going to change the world.
You too.
You don't cause pain like this and then it goes unnoticed. The world is watching and the world's going to continue to watch. This is going to change the world.
The world's going to help.
Wow. Mario, let's start with you. Aside from the human heartache, everything that we have revealed, and when I say we, I'm talking primarily of Drea and other independent journalists, that this mass slaughter of hundreds of ostriches, this was a solution to a problem that did not exist, that they were not infected. In fact, that important research was being done. Mario, what was the unspoken reason for the CFIA to send in their assassins under cover of night and slaughter these beautiful birds?
Well, I got to be honest with you. The amount of detail and information related to the ostrich farm is something I'm not particularly privy to. Like, I don't have obviously all the insights that you guys have, but just looking at it from an outsider, and I'm going to put my hat on as, let's say, a quasi-average Canadian that is just looking into this. And I think an average Canadian will view it from a lens of, okay, so these birds were sick almost a year ago. Like, why was there no testing done? Why did all these birds have to be slaughtered? Like, they were, sick a year ago. They're fine today. What's the point? Like, the amount of government waste, resources, RCMP, like the detail, like to bring out, snipers, marksmen to take these birds out. It almost seems like it's something that is vindictive of the government. And maybe they just didn't like the pushback of, these folks saying, you know what, like RFK wants them. Like, the US is interested in them. Like, we could save this. Like, and that's what I think the audience needs to know, is that why not just extend, an olive branch to the US and say, hey, let's restart these discussions. Like, use it it may not be big, but at least restart the conversations on trade and restart the conversations in having these negotiations and say, hey, we know you want, the ostriches. According to Canada law, whatever that law is, we won't allow it. We will kill them, but please take them. And you're going to pay for the transportation. They offered all of that. And so the fact that we didn't take them up on that, and instead the optimal solution in the government's eyes was to simply kill birds for being sick a year ago, I think sets a horrible, horrible precedent going forward. And I think, I don't know if it's, to me, it can't be laziness. It can't be stupidity. This to me is something that I think is a bit more vindictive in nature. And it just smells really bad. And I think, and I'll say again, like, as an average Canadian looking on from the outside, it's very, very odd. It's very concerning. And I think it's going to raise a lot of eyebrows to Canadians. And it doesn't matter, where you fall on the political spectrum, that this isn't normal.
What if those who were once called conspiracy theorists turned out to be right again? Okay. A new study by Korean doctors claimed that COVID vaccines raise the risk of 6 cancers, including lung, breast, and prostate. Researchers analyzed health records from more than 8.4 million adults between 2021 and 2023, and their findings were published in Biomarker Research, a respected scientific journal. Critics dismiss it, but the data raises concern that spike protein exposure may be tied to long-term health risks. Dr. Peter McCullough has been aware of this since 2020, which is why he collaborated with the wellness company to create the Ultimate Spike Detox, designed to help your body clear spike proteins, reduce inflammation, and support health. with natural ingredients like nattokinase, I think is how you say that, dandelion root, and bromelain. It is your daily proactive defense from a mandate virus. Don't wait until symptoms strike or something unexpected happens. Experience the only formula approved and used by Dr. McCullough, one of the top doctors who risked it all. Head to twc.health/rebel and use code REBEL, cap locks, to get 10% off, plus free shipping. Again, that's twc.health/rebel and use code REBEL to get 10% off and get back to feeling better post-COVID.
You know, Mario, I think you made an excellent assessment. And David, that is the point, isn't it? There was a plan B that did not involve slaughter. This story has received international attention. RFK Jr. reached out. He said, we're happy to take the birds. And I know Ezra, about 2 weeks ago, asked a federal Liberal cabinet minister, in the interest of extending an olive branch to the Trump administration, why don't we take him up on that offer? Why not save the birds and also do a solid for the Trump administration in terms of getting negotiations going again on the ongoing tariff tiff? Ezra did not even receive a response. I mean, nothing. It was thanks for your question. Next. David, what's your assessment of what's going on?
I started covering the story in April when I had Katie on my broadcast for the first time. And I covered the story extensively as anybody, but including Rebel News, which has done a tremendous job. Accolades to Drea for being there, and Sheila Gunn Reid at times. Accolades to Viva Fry for covering this story. I got this story on some U.S. stations like Redacted, where I do a stint every week to talk about Canadian news. I wrote about this story for the 3 U.S. media outlets that I work for. And I'll tell you, this is all about, it's always been about subservience to big pharma. Because if you recall, on January 2nd, 2025, Universal Ostrich Farms received an exemption from the CFIA because of the unique genetic composition of their ostriches. 8 days later, the CFIA lifted that exemption without any reason or rationale. 2 weeks later, the federal government announced it was buying 500,000 H5N1 avian flu vaccines from GSK in the UK. So is there a connection there? Of course. This government does not want ostriches or humans to attain herd immunity. That is anathema to this government. They want us to take the vaccine every time. These birds developed natural immunity. And it was quite clear to anybody who had any peripheral contact with this story, who ever talked to Katie at least on one occasion. These were ostriches that were healthy, thriving, and happy. And there was absolutely no reason for this massacre of literally a week ago when this farm, when Katie and her mom woke up to see a wasteland where there was once a thriving flock of ostriches. This is one of the worst Canadian tragedies in the last 10 years. And nobody seems to get it in the mainstream media. Nobody seems to get that this is about outright appropriation, expropriation of private property, invasion of a homeland, occupation of a farm, complete denial of property rights and livelihood rights. The government wanted to destroy this family from the top to the bottom. They've tried very hard to do that, but thank God, this is a family with a lot of guts, moxie, and courage. And I'm encouraging Katie to do what we discussed yesterday. And we talked every day on the phone. And she told me about her objectives to start an association to fight the CFIA's continued interference in the lives of farmers and her basic desire to help farmers. And this association is going to be called Voice for Farmers. And I'm going to do whatever I have to help her get that off the ground because I think it's a worthy project.
Drea, to David's point, first of all, this is another an appalling example of our Constitution, that it doesn't recognize private property rights, and animals are considered private property, not living beings, by the law. But to David's other point, if the ostensible policy reason had nothing to do with health and safety, but had everything to do about pushing future vaccines for big pharma, this is a scandal. What say you?
Well, it's a scandal beyond what I think we even know. Even the people who have been covering it for so long, like David and myself, I think we're scratching the surface of something much bigger. And I think to a certain extent, both David and Mario are hitting on the key issues. You have policy. So you have, for the first time, farmers publicly standing up against the stamping out policy, which is derived, but in this case superseded, but derived from the World Organization for Animal Health. So you have these fearless farmers who are in some ways doing everything right. Again, these are farmers. Katie became the perfect spokesperson. She was so articulate. She just blossomed in that role. The kitchen became this whole operation site where you had people working around the clock. The eyes that they had, exposing, for example, the neglect of the hen spirit. They actually captured footage after the CFIA tried to block out Canadians. I mean, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency was like, we cannot let this farm win. If we do, all of the other hundreds of farms in BC alone that we've wiped out in the name of avian flu could say, why didn't you do that for us? And the future, it would be harder. Now, it should be noted that CFIA has done exemptions where they actually saw it out and they actually didn't go ahead and cull that herd. If any farm was worthy of an exemption, it was and still is the Universal Ostrich Farm.
You like the hat? Me too. Same strong message about making Canada great again, but in a really cool color, black and gold. There's other colors available, and it's an all-Canadian site. So if you want to signal your tribe or trigger a Liberal, go to mcgahats.ca today.